Hey guys, I am getting ready to make some mini banana bread loaves and wanted to share that with you. My name's Laurel and I'm a Pampered Chef consultant, and I'm going to get started with some really ripe bananas. I've gone to the store a few times and sometimes there's been none and sometimes there's been a ton. So last time I got one really green bunch, and I also got one ripe bunch, and they've all now suddenly gotten really ripe. So I am trying to find things to do with them. So I thought I would make some mini banana bread loaves. So this is a Pampered Chef recipe, but I'll tell you, it wasn't my first choice. Not that it's not a great recipe, but I have one that I use all the time, but I was out of yogurt. And of course I don't want to run out to the store for one item. I'm trying to save when I really need to go and stock up. So I just searched through different recipes, and since our mini loaf pan comes with this recipe, and I wanted to do minis so that we could freeze them or I could hide them because otherwise my kids will eat them all and my husband, and they'll be gone. So I can hide a few. No, I only made 4, even though there's 8. You know, look around. Like some of my favorite recipe books, my go-to is always Cooks Illustrated, America's Test Kitchen, if you've ever watched PBS. This is a fabulous cookbook. It's called The New Best Recipe. Anything you make out of here will turn out fabulous, but it will not be low fat and it will not be low cal. That is usually my go-to one, but like I said, it called for yogurt. Then my next one I love is the Betty Crocker new cookbook. My husband got this for me like the first year we were married because I just wanted a basic cookbook that I can substitute ingredients out easily. And everything in there, of course, is homemade. And then another one I love are the Southern Living ones. So I went through all of these. They all had a banana bread recipe, you know, because it's such a standard recipe to make. But they all called for buttermilk or yogurt, and I didn't have either. So the Pampered Chef one, luckily, is all basic standard ingredients. So you can always count on them to use good stuff you're going to find in your pantry, which is what we need right now, right? So I'm going to start, and if you guys have any questions, comment below. And if you have anything you'd like to see me make, let me know. So I have kids recipes, like I can do kids pretzels, I can do pizzas, mini pizzas. I can do all kinds of stuff that, you know, I'm here, I've got ingredients, so I'd love to do some recipes for you guys. Maybe there's some vegan recipes you'd like. I've got some fantastic baking vegan recipes too. Gluten-free, I got it all, man. You just comment below. So I'm going to start with my wet ingredients. So I'm going to do 1 bowl for wet ingredients, 1 bowl for dry ingredients, and then I'm going to mix them. So this is a really standard recipe that you'll find for quick breads. So I'm going to take 3 really ripe, and you can see they are really brown and speckled, and that's what you want. If you don't have bananas that are that ripe, wait a day or 2, because it really does turn out better when you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and peel these and throw them in my bowl, and then I'm going to use our mix and masher. This thing is awesome. So most people know it for chopping up ground meat when you are making tacos or you know, cooking sausage or something like that for dinner. But I use this for mashing beans, I use it for mashed potatoes, I use it for things like this where I need to just mash something up. And I even use this when I make my pie crusts to cut the vent holes in the pie crust, and it's super cute. So I just do, you know, pop on there, and it makes it super cute, and you know, all even every single time. But this is a really handy tool. So I'm just mashing them. You do not want to mix these in like a blender or use a mixer with them, because it will make them like almost your dough, your bread won't turn out right. So I would really recommend, if you don't have this, you could use a fork in a bowl. So I always try to give substitutes, but this is a great one. So I've got these all mashed up pretty good, and now I'm going to continue to add. So I need 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, and then I've got my mini or my Easy Read measuring cups here. So they come with our new little mini one. My husband said, that is absolutely adorable. So it's super cute. So I'm gonna grab the 1 cup one, set those aside, and it goes from a 4 cup down to a 1/4 cup, which is 4 tablespoons. So if you have kids at home, I will tell you, this is a great thing to do for science, because science encompasses lots of things, one of which is baking, is chemistry. So it would be a fun thing to do and talk about the fact that how different rising agents work. So make sure I'm adding a 1/2 cup while I'm talking. I don't want to be adding the wrong thing. So you could explain that there's a difference between baking soda and baking powder. So if you don't know, baking soda is activated by an acid. So usually you'll see buttermilk or vinegar or some other agent that is helping that to rise. And it will start, the minute they combine, it will start to rise. So that's why you add your liquids and your solids, can't think and do stuff. It's showing my age. You want to add your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients separately. So right before you put it in the oven, you combine it, and then it starts to rise. Now, baking powder works differently. And a lot of recipes will combine both so that you start to get a rise as it is sitting on the counter, and then when you put it in the oven, the heat will activate it again, and you'll get that double rise, and it will be a much nicer rise. Now I need a 1/4 cup of milk, so I'm going to use my same little measuring cup here. And another good thing to do baking with, or cooking, is to talk about fractions. I use fractions all the time when I bake, and have them experiment. I did a kids cooking class because I homeschool, and I do Pampered Chef, so I offered for our homeschool group to do a kids baking class. So we did one, and we got rice out, and I had them get a measuring spoons and measuring cups, and we measured how many teaspoons of rice can you fit into a tablespoon, how many tablespoons can you fit into a 1/4 cup, how many 1/4 cups can you fit into a cup. So it was really a fun way to have them do math, but in a real life situation. Now's the time to go ahead and do real life learning. You don't have to have them sit there and do sheets of fractions or something like that to learn. Now I need 2 eggs, and one tip when you use eggs is don't ever break the egg into your big bowl. Break it into a small bowl, because occasionally I've had an egg that was bad. Very rarely, but why waste, especially right now, all your ingredients by risking that. So I'm going to go ahead and break it into just one of our 1 cup prep bowls. Then I'll pour it in once I know it's okay, and then I'll do my next one. And another fun thing is to show kids, if you're breaking an egg into a bowl and you get a piece of shell in, just take another piece of shell and scoop it out. It like sticks, it's like magnetic. It like sticks to each other. So you can do that. So I've got all my wet ingredients now. I think the last thing I need is vanilla extract. And if you were fortunate enough during the holidays to pick up our double strength vanilla bourbon Madagascar vanilla, like 40 names in it, you could use that, and I do have some left, but you also could just use regular vanilla from the store. Everybody seems to have that on hand. Darn it, my water ran out of my sink. I hate that happens. So I need, I need a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, but because this is double strength, I'm only going to use 1/4. So hey, it's a savings. Now we have 2 different kinds of measuring spoons, and I go back and forth on the ones I like. Just depends on, I guess my mood, but these are our stacking ones. So they go from 1/8 to 1/4, a 1/2, a teaspoon, a 1/2 tablespoon, and a tablespoon. So if you don't know, a tablespoon, a 1/2 tablespoon is 1.5 teaspoons, and a tablespoon has 3 teaspoons in it. So little math lesson. There's your math for the day. But then we have these sliding ones. So there's a 1 tablespoon and a tablespoon and a teaspoon, and then they slide down from an eighth. You can just see as I slide it, it makes it larger, and it's super easy. And then this one goes from a teaspoon to a half teaspoon to 2 teaspoons to a 2.5 to 1 tablespoon. So you can just see, they're a little different. It just depends on what you're using. But when I'm making something like a meatloaf and you're measuring like bunches of different dry ingredients, I like these because it just slides really quick. Just slide it back and forth, measure, and you're done. Sometimes when I'm using spice jars, though, these are great because they will fit right into even the narrowest spice jar. So, pick your poison, right? So I'm going to add a quarter teaspoon. Like I said, it's the double strength. So if you have regular at home, you're going to use the 1/2. Okay, so let me double check. I've got my bananas, I've got my vegetable oil, milk, eggs, and vanilla extract. So I've got that all mixed into my large batter bowl and just kind of mixing that all up. And then I'm going to set that aside and slide all my ingredients over. And I always start when I cook with a sink of hot soapy water, which I just said, it drained on me. So I was really annoyed. So as I cook, I'll usually just throw everything in there. And then when I'm done, it's like pretty easy to either pull it out, throw it in the dishwasher, and it's pre-rinsed, or I can go ahead and wash it, quickly, and then it doesn't take that long. So I'm going to dry this off. I got some egg on it. And I'm going to use my cutting mat. I taught my sons that when they bake to always measure your ingredients over a cutting mat like this, like a flexible one, because you're always going to have some spillage, and then it's easy to just pick it up and pour it back in, and there's no waste. So if you've ever watched my videos, I hate waste. I think I just remember baking with my grandmother years ago when she was raised in the Depression. So you did not waste a thing around her. I mean, she had a door handle, and she had every rubber band she'd ever gotten from the grocery store on there, just in case she needed it. So it was kind of funny, but I just am not funny that way. So I need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So I do keep my flour in a bin one of these big containers, because my son has a wheat allergy. So if you have it in a bag, it tends to kind of get all over everything, and I don't want to take a chance. So I'm going to use now, just so you know, there's a difference between, these are liquid measuring cups and these are dry measuring cups. Now, if you're measuring rice, it's probably not a big idea, or oatmeal. Like when I measure my oatmeal, I make it every morning. I measure it in one of these, and then just go ahead and pour the water, pour that in the pan, measure the water, pour it in. That's not going to be a big deal. That's not chemistry. But when you're baking, you really want to make sure you're using the correct measuring cups, because you want it to turn out, and if anything is off, you leave an ingredient out, you're going to have, you're not going to get the result you want. So that's why when I bake, I actually lay out all my ingredients and make sure I have everything, because if I don't, like I said, I can grab a different recipe and substitute. So always make sure when you bake that you, number one, read through the recipe before you start, and number two, have all your ingredients laid out. You don't have to measure them out, but just have them all set out so you can, I usually put them in order that I'm going to use them. So if you could see my counter here, I've got like a little line. So I need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Now, when you measure flour, there's a right way and there's a funny way. You do not want to put your scoop in here and just scoop it out, because what happens is you're compressing that flour and you're going to get a lot more flour than the recipe calls for. So what I always do is I take my measuring cups, like I need 1.5, so I've got them sitting out. Hopefully you can see. And then I take my little scoop and I scoop my flour into the measuring cup. And I remember learning this part years ago when I did my home ec class. Of course, I did all the home ec classes. I loved all that in high school. We did sewing and cooking and all that. And I wish I could remember my teacher's name. I gave her the hardest time. I was an awful student. But I wish I remembered, because I would apologize to her. But you actually use this little chopping motion back and forth, and what it does is it levels it out. And then you're going to pour that into your bowl. And then I'll move it so you can see. And then I'll just do the other one. Now, like I said, now I have, and the measuring spoon or set also comes with this little leveler too, which I love. But like I said, so now I've got all this flour on here that I don't need. I can just lift it up, put it back in here, and I just tap it with the back of that leveler to get all the flour to fall back in there, and then I'm not wasting anything. Because you know you're going to have a recipe where you need like another quarter cup, and you're like, oh, if I hadn't wasted that, I'd have had it. Okay, so now I need 1 cup plus 1 tablespoon granulated sugar. So now I'm kind of in a pickle because I've used my 1 cup measuring cup with wheat, and I can't put it in my sugar, and I can't use my cutting mat with it either. So usually if you are baking for somebody who has food allergies, that's the kind of funky stuff you got to keep in mind. It's not necessarily that you would inadvertently put something in, but you might accidentally contaminate something. So I'm going to use my 1/2 cup twice. So, oh darn, I used that. Let me rinse it off and wash it real quick. And I like to use the 1/2 cup even though it calls for 1 cup, because it is easier to fit into the bags that I buy. I went to the store and they didn't have any sugar. They didn't have any flour either, but luckily I had a bunch. But they didn't have any sugar, and when I went back, they only had the little bags, so that's what I ended up with. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way so I don't get my sugar in there. And I'm just going to actually put my measuring cup into the bag and just roll the bag until it is level. And I don't have enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my other bag. Let me grab my scissors. Oh, I've got a pair right here. For ease, I'll use these scissors. Oops. So this is just organic cane sugar. Sometimes I'll buy that, sometimes I don't, but like I said, this time it was a matter of your choice is this or this. So I bought it. Or it was that in the 25-pound bag, and I thought I'll leave that for somebody else who really bakes. So I'm going to get that as level as I can and pour that into my measuring cup. So 1 cup plus 1 tablespoon. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that 1 tablespoon in just a second. Okay. So that is all measured. Now I need a teaspoon of baking soda. So I'm going to grab my teaspoon here. Now, this is baking soda. Make sure you don't use baking powder. And you also want to occasionally check your dates on these, because I was baking for a while and couldn't figure out why stuff wasn't turning out. And my baking powder had actually expired and it wasn't rising. So that was a pretty nasty learning lesson. So, okay, I've got 1 teaspoon, and I'm just like double checking here before I do anything because I'm talking while I'm doing it. And then I need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So salt, I'm going to measure over my sink. I'm pretty good about not getting too much, but that's another one I taught my son. You know, measure over, especially for kids because they don't have steady hands, measure over a measuring cup, and then if you have any left, you can actually pour it back into the spout and not waste. So sometimes you got to make little adaptations for your kids. Okay, so I've got all that in. I'm going to grab a spoon and mix this up. You can use a whisk, but I just have this handy. And then what I'm going to do is fold this into my wet ingredients. So I've got this all mixed. So comment below, are you guys working from home? Do you have your kiddos with you? What are you doing to stay, occupied? I have a link in the post to my customer group where I'm posting a lot of homeschool resources. Since I homeschool, I'm trying to share that with you, and I'm posting recipes and spring crafts and all kind of stuff so that, to give you guys ideas. Sometimes it's really tough, especially if you're not used to homeschooling your kids. So I've done it for many years, and the young years are so much fun, but it can be exhausting. So just cut yourself a break and don't feel like you have to stick to some schedule You know, maybe one day you do math and reading and one day you do history, and Horrible Histories is a great one to watch on Hulu. So what I did was I just pumped my kitchen spritzer. I just have canola oil in here, and it has a little siphon on the bottom that pulls it up, and it sprays, so you can see it sprays pretty good. So I'm gonna spray this into my pan, and I'm gonna do it over my sink, so any overflow goes on the dishes that I'm gonna wash anyway, and not all over my sink or my floor. So I went ahead and sprayed it, you can see. Now, if you have any that overflowed on the top, you'll want to wipe that off. Now, when you're done using your spritzer, you want to turn this counterclockwise, and you probably could hear that pressure release. That will just save the valve in there and keep it lasting longer. And I've had this for 4.5 years, and it's like still going strong. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix my ingredients. I'll set this aside. And I'm going to set this in a sink. And I'm going to fold in my dry ingredients. So before I do that though, one more time, I'm going to go through my recipe and verify I added everything. This is a really good tip to teach kids too. So I've got my bananas, my vegetable oil, my milk, eggs, vanilla extract. Then I've got my flour, sugar, baking soda, salt, and I don't have my cinnamon yet because I'm going to show you what to do with that in a minute. So now it just says to add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients and stir just until moistened. Another thing too, you do not want to overmix this. So I'm going to add about half and just mix it in a little bit. And I'm using our largest, I never can remember the name of this darn thing. I use it all the time. I always want to call it a mix and scraper, but I don't know if it's a mix and stir or something. But it's got this, there's a bunch of sizes. This is the mini. It's got this little like spoon-shaped scraper, so it's really nice. So you don't have to use a spoon and a scraper, so it's really more efficient. Less to clean up, yay, right? So I'm just going to continue to just mix this and fold it in. So when you're folding, you're doing this motion where you're scooping and like folding it over on itself. And then make sure you scrape the bottom and the corners. There's always some that likes to stick in there. And then once you've stirred and you don't see any flour coming out when you turn it, like sometimes you'll turn it over and it like pours this little bit of flour out. Once you don't see that anymore, you've stirred it enough. You do not have to continue to mix it. So the next thing I'm going to do is get my pan. Remember, I've already prepared it. Now, when you use our pans, you can use the temperature on our recipes. When you have another recipe, you want to lower the temperature for a dark pan, like 25 degrees. So this one you probably could do the same, but for obviously if you're doing minis, you're going to do a shorter period of time than you would for a bigger loaf. For like our brownie pans and stuff, you want to reduce the temperature to 25 degrees because it will brown faster. So I'm using our large scoop here, and I love these. They are super nice. This one is a 3 tablespoon. We have a medium that's a 2 tablespoon, and a small that's a 1 tablespoon. So this is great for muffins and meatloaves and mashed potatoes if you're serving and stuff like that. I would not use it for ice cream because you could bend this little piece. You can see it moving back and forth in there. So you don't want to use it for anything hard, but for this it's great, especially when you're trying to equally divide it. What I'll usually do is start with the big one, and then if I have just a little bit left, I will get the small one and just continue to like break it down. And so it's, you want it to cook evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and just start scooping this into here. And this should fit all of these because it's a recipe designed for the mini muffin pan. So I'm going to do large scoops in each until it's all evenly divided. And you can see it just squeezes out, it just plops that out easily. Now, when I get down to here and if I've got too much, or not enough, what I might do is scoop out of the other ones, but this looks like it's going to be pretty equal. Now, I will say that at the beginning, before I started this video, I started to preheat my oven. So it has come up to temperature and it has been heating for quite a while. I don't know how long this video's gone. But you want to do that because what I'm going to do now is grab my smallest scoop and divide this back up. So give me a second. So here's our mini scoop, just so our medium scoop, so you can see, and then this is our small. So those are the different sizes. So I'm going to use my small scoop now to go ahead and get the last of this out, and probably do like 1 scoop in each one, and that way I'll know they are really even. They are going to cook evenly, and I'll just kind of eyeball it. Some of them look like they might be a little bit less full. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'll set that aside. Now, I'm not quite done yet, so let me check my recipe. So now I need to mix some cinnamon and sugar, and I have a powdered sugar shaker. Now, I have powdered sugar in it, but I don't really want to have one just for cinnamon sugar that I don't use very often. So I'm going to grab a, no, I've got this here, I'll use this. I'm going to grab just another measuring cup, and I'm going to open this up, get anything on top out, and twist this. Now it won't twist probably. Every time I try to take the lid off, it wants to twist open. There it goes. Try not to have it fly everywhere because it's powdered sugar. Come on, little buddy. Oh gosh, there's like nothing in there. How funny. I'll just throw that in the sink. Okay, so I'm gonna bang that off. So you can see it's stainless steel inside. It's got like a little mesh top that goes on. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my topping that I wanna sprinkle on here in here. So I need a tablespoon of sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So I'm gonna grab my sugar bag and just scoop out a tablespoon. And I'm gonna pour it in there. And I'm gonna get a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And this is our Korinji cinnamon. This was available at Christmas. And I think it will probably come back again at the holidays. So when you see it, stock up, because we don't have it all year long. But it's really, really a nice flavor. Okay, so now that I've got those in there, I'm just gonna swirl it a little bit, and I'm gonna put my lid back on, and it pushes down and twists, which was why I was having trouble trying to get it open. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to just double check my recipe. I'm real big on the double checking. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just sprinkle on top. Now, another great thing to put on top is our French toast seasoning. Oh my gosh. It's really for popcorn, but I use it on baked goods pretty often, and on oatmeal, and of course it's good on, my kids like it on popcorn. So I'm just continuing to sprinkle until this is evenly divided. And this is just like a nice extra touch. You know, a lot of times you don't have something like this on baked goods, you know, a banana bread. Now, one thing that you can do also is these are great for sharing. So at the holidays or throughout the year, if you want to share, we have mini muffin boxes that you can buy in sets, and you can get those as well. So I'm just going to push that all in. You know, the more you can clean it off, the easier it's going to be when you are done baking to clean that pan. So I'm just brushing it all into there. So now it's going to bake. Like I said, I preheated my oven to 350 for 25 minutes. And then I'm going to use the cake tester and releaser to check it. And let me show you that. So this is really nice. So what's really nice about it is it's long. You can like get into the oven without having to like get really close to the oven, because there's always that blast of heat. And then it's got a little edge on the other side that you can use to loosen your baked goods to get them out of the pan. So that's always super handy. One last tip is, I don't know if you can see, the bottom of the pan is a really pretty, like Tiffany blue color. If you put this in your rack and slide it back, it's gonna scratch. So if you want to keep it looking pretty, pull your baking tray out and then set that on the rack and then close it. So it's just a way to keep it from getting scratched and making it look nicer. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'll post a picture below when it's done, and I will be sure to hide 4 of them so we've got some for another day. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will be going live in a little bit making dinner, so watch for that one too. Again, hope you guys are staying safe. Bye-bye.